Everybody just says, it devastated me. It wrecked me. And I just think, okay, well, I'm prepared to be devastated and wrecked.
I saw this trailer again the other night. Yes, it's ridiculous, but I think I'm in.
A good way to describe him as a filmmaker is punishing.
Mm-hmm.
This film is a nightmare.
There are clues to the twist.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There definitely are, and you can't believe you missed them.
Oh, where has the time gone? Welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we are from madwolf.com. Well, here we sit, the end of June. July always sneaks up on us. How does this happen?
I know it.
It just gets into it. Now we look and we say, oh, the year is half over. We got to compile a list of our favorite movies, our favorite horror movies so far this year in 2019. Overall, obviously we've got some good ones, but I think overall, for horror anyway, it's been a little weak.
Yeah, I think you're right. Those that made the list are great movies, but when you look at sort of the also-rans, not nearly as strong as I think in years past.
Yeah, although there are some good ones to look forward to in the second half of 2019. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But we want to say thank you again. We had such a great time this past Fright Club Live when we premiered The Dead Don't Die. How much fun was that?
It was so fun. Everything about it was fun. And thanks again to Cicely for arranging that for us.
Yeah, and for the Gateway for putting us in the big room.
That's right.
Big room with the comfy chairs.
That's right.
At Gateway Film Center. And Chris for giving us that nice introduction. Just the great crowd and the prizes we had. Even though we had those disappearing T-shirts, we got them replaced for our winners. And we had a great time. And I think everybody had a good time. I mean, this film ended up being quite polarizing, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a little clue as to one of the movies that made the list. But we really loved it, and a lot of people did too. But it's a polarizing movie because
it is. But I'll give you this: it's a fun movie to see with a crowd. That crowd enjoyed it. They laughed a lot.
Yeah, we had a great time. So thank you for that. We're getting back to our regular structure of Fright Club next month, and we're going to hit it up Wednesday, July 10th. We're going to be back at the Gateway Film Center, of course, recording live as we watch We Are the Flesh.
Yes, it is. It's a sloppy, messy film, and we're going to talk about body fluids in horror movies.
Right. So we'd love to have you come out and bring a towel. That's good advice for that one. So we're looking back at 2019 so far, the first half, and let's talk about a few. Oh no, actually no. We want to say we got a couple other thank yous to throw out right before we get to that for last week's Fright Club. Omar wrote in, gave us a new theme song for Fright Club.
He did.
He's very musical.
He is very musical. He gave us a theme song for Screening Room, which is our other podcast, and for this one as well. So we got to set these to music and start singing them.
Definitely. And going back a little bit, the Gates of Hell podcast went over really well. We continue to get some feedback for the Gates of Hell Fright Club. Beer Nut 1 and then Brandon, who's one of our writers at madwolf.com, both loved Gateway to Hell podcast, especially including the Beyond.
Yes, and I did have a feeling that people were going to be happy to, because it's part of a trilogy, Lucio Fulci's Gateway to Hell trilogy, so obviously one of them was going to make it. We don't spend a lot of time talking about Lucio Fulci, so it didn't surprise me. People were happy.
And remember, the whole Gateway to Hell podcast was Jeffrey's idea, so we thank him again for that. And he wanted to hear a mention of As Above, So Below, which
I have to admit I'm not a fan of that film.
Not a huge fan.
No.
It wasn't horrible, but just not a huge fan of that. And also, finally, thank you to Joel. He's a filmmaker. He's been dropping by the Gateway. We've gotten to know him here lately, even though I think the first time I called him Luke. Why did I call him Luke?
I don't know.
Sorry about that, but it's Joel. And he made a 60-second short horror film that was very cool.
Yeah, and the reason that this came up is that, so we had gone to the place in Columbus that's referred to as the Gateway to Hell, and one of us injured ourselves, and we talked about it with him before we all saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he pointed out he had just filmed something there, and so that's actually the location.
Because we said at the time, when the first time we went there, this would be a great place to shoot, and he did, and it was one of those that's, it's hard to put together something effective in 60 seconds,
yeah, and he does,
but I think he did.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great use of color to it, and a lot of tension in 60 seconds now. I thought it was great.
So great job, and thank you for sharing that with us, Joel. We appreciate that. So, before we start counting down our top 5 of the first half of 2019, let's talk about a few that didn't make the list that we also enjoyed. And I want to start with one that it's weird to talk about because it's hard to see. Although you will be able to see this film if you come and with us and enjoy Nightmares Film Festival this October at Gateway Film Center, because we saw this movie as part of the submissions to the film festival, and we are lucky enough to be on the jury panel, and we both watched it. It's called Reckoning, and we loved it.
We loved it. I mean, I love everything about this movie. I'm so excited to get a chance to see it on the big screen. I'm so excited to see how everybody else at Nightmares, feels about it. The performances are glorious. The writing is great. The direction is amazing. It looks incredible. And there's a good chance that it's not technically on this list because it's not out yet.
Right. It was put together by co-writers, co-directors, married couple. I love their names: Lane Sky and Ruckus Sky. Awesome. Cast is great. The great writing. It's really, really, really impressive, especially for a movie that is not officially out. And we're so excited. It's getting a showcase at Nightmares.
It's going to be the Midwest premiere.
Yeah, so really, really excited. So just another reason to try to make it out to Columbus, Ohio for Nightmares Film Festival this October. Also, another one we enjoyed, especially you, The Hole in the Ground.
Yes, I like Irish horror, and I like how often it has to do with sort of the woodland creatures, the sort of mythology around there. And this one had a similar structure to several other films that came out this year, only I thought the execution was way better.
And one that was a nice, mean little treat called Pledge.
Oh, yeah.
Set in the world
Greek
of
system.
Greek system and fraternities and hazing and trying to get in. It's only about, 80 minutes or so?
Yeah, it's short, but it does.
But it's effective.
It is. I enjoyed it. I mean, enjoyed might be the wrong word for it because it is a bit mean, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. Also, Starfish, that's one that we got to meet the filmmakers. They came in to Gateway to have a screening, and you got to wear the wolf head.
I did get to wear the wolf head. It was very cool.
And we liked it, Starfish.
Yeah, it was great. Just a really interesting sort of meditation on grief and the end of the world.
And then one that I think for some people might toe the line between horror, maybe not, depending on your perspective, called Piercing.
We were excited about this one because it's the follow-up, Nicholas Pesce's follow-up to The Eyes of My Mother, which we adored.
Adored it.
And this is a very, very different movie, but it's interesting and incredibly specific in the way it's all been put together. Yeah, we both liked it a lot.
Yeah, and there's some others this year of note, of up and down on the scale of how much we enjoyed it, but big openings so far this year. We've had Ma, we've had Pet Sematary, The Prodigy, Annabelle Comes Home, which actually at the time of us taping this, it's coming out here in a few days.
Yeah,
so
we saw it though. We saw it last week.
We're going to have our review here soon, but I think we both agree it's the best of the Annabelle series.
Yes.
Yeah. And that we're not just saying that because Annabelle stayed at our house.
No, and that we're worried that she's going to come back whether we want her or not.
It turns into a nice little haunted house flick.
Right.
And it's got a lot of jump scares, yes, which usually aren't my favorite, but some of these are effective jump scares.
Yeah, it's got exclusively jump scares. I mean, it embraces what it is, which is like you're saying, it's a haunted house movie.
Yeah. It's got if you've seen the trailer, you know that the evil is unleashed by this one friend coming over and letting Annabelle out and touching everything. The writing is good because it makes that character sympathetic.
Right. So
you want to just smack her.
Right.
But then it makes her sympathetic.
And I think all of the performances are very good, especially McKenna Grace, who plays their daughter, who plays
the little girl, the daughter of the Warrens. Yeah, really good. So yeah, we were totally had fun with it, and I think it's the best of the series, and that's coming out soon. Child's Play, that's one that I've noticed here. It just came out. And I've seen a lot of people on social media really liked it, which I'm glad to hear. It's another one that sounds like if you see it in a big theater, like we were talking about Dead Don't Die, you have a good time with it. We personally weren't impressed with it, but if that's your thing, man, go for it.
And then another one, and it comes out this week here, a limited release called Lose, which is very nightmarish, interesting. Another really short one. I mean, that's barely over an hour, and I liked it as well.
Yeah, and then another one that just came out, and I think will be available soon on home video or streaming, is Nightmare Cinema. It's a new anthology. Some of the anthologies work better than others.
Some of the shorts do.
Yeah, some of the shorts, that make up the anthology work better than others. But overall, pretty solid, especially for anthologies, because I know we've talked before, not always our favorite.
No,
not always our favorite,
yeah.
but I think everybody should be able to find at least one or two of the shorts in there that they like, and that's Nightmare Cinema. And then, boy, we've got some we've got some big ones to look forward to the rest of this year.
Yeah,
and
we do.
one that we're going to see here, what, in like 2 days?
Tomorrow. We see it tomorrow.
At the time of this taping, we're going to see it tomorrow, and that's Midsummer.
Oh, my God. Ari Aster's follow-up to Hereditary.
Yeah.
And it's funny, everything you see about it, including when Jordan Peele tweets about it, not that we follow Jordan Peele on Twitter or anything, everybody just says, it devastated me. It wrecked me. And I just think, no one says it scares me. Everybody says, I'm like, okay, well, I'm prepared to be devastated and wrecked.
Yeah. But you know what? That kind of sets me up for another one of those divisive movies like say, Hereditary, that people go, no, it wasn't scary. Other people say it devastated me. And of course, we both loved it. But we will see. Also, It Chapter 2.
Yes,
very excited.
Very excited.
Very excited. Was not a fan at all of the TV Chapter 2 rendition. But
this cast is considerably better.
It is. And also the way they fleshed out Chapter 1 has me very, very confident that they can really take this one home. So, also Zombieland 2 Double Tap. And it was great. The T-shirt, I called it out.
Jeffrey, Jeffrey, Gates of Hell Jeffrey had it on.
I called it out in the podcast that he had it on, already ready for Double Tap, and so are we. And one that I've got to admit I am strangely interested in, as I saw this trailer again the other night, Crawl.
Yeah.
That alligator movie. Yes, it's ridiculous. But I think I'm in.
Well, Alexander Aja does some interesting work. As a rule, they're flawed to a degree that I can't say I'm necessarily a fan, but I am interested in seeing where he goes with this.
Yeah, it's got me interested.
It's basically Shining Bright with an alligator instead of a tiger. Burning bright alligator instead of a tiger.
With Meatloaf. The Meatloaf. So that's what we have to look forward to, and I'm sure there's going to be some other ones pop up that we don't know about yet.
Oh, yeah.
But already, though, a nice list to look forward to in the second half of 2019. But let's get to what impressed us so far this year, and we'll start off at number 5 with one of our favorite happy-go-lucky directors, Gaspar Noé. French dancers gather in a remote, empty school building to rehearse on a wintry night. The all-night celebration morphs into a hallucinatory nightmare when they learn their sangria is laced with LSD. It is climax.
If you couldn't dance, what would you do? Suicide?
Well, we've talked about Gaspar Noé a few times on this podcast. I think maybe I'm more of a fan than you are. I don't love every movie that he's done, but I always want to see what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's such a boundary pusher, and I found this interesting after we saw the movie. I read that he wanted to make this movie a counterpoint psychologically to 2001, which, as you know, is one of my all-time favorite movies. That movie, you saw apes evolve into humans. He wanted to make a movie where people devolve and go back to their primal urges and primal instincts. And I think that's an interesting way to look at this movie because they certainly devolve.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. One of the things I think a good way to describe him as a filmmaker is punishing. Mm-hmm. And this film is a nightmare. And it's supposed to be. It's very intentionally so. Between the relentless music, the sound, the color, and then the way that, the evening just devolves and people click into these really horrible little groups. And you know what's going on here and what's going on there. And nobody's thinking clearly. And it is a nightmare. I mean, it's a very effective film. I can't say I ever want to see it again because it just wore on me, just wore on me. But it is a really well made horror,
and that's what he does. And the funny thing is that in the most of the beginning, after a very mysterious opening shot, then when it goes to the dancers, when you first meet them, it's very joyous. They're very happy. Yeah. They want to dance and let it out and rehearse and get ready for the show. And then, yes, as the night wears on, holy moly, it descends into hell. And really the only cast member who was professional was Sofia Boutella.
Right.
Everybody else, I'm pretty sure, was not an actor. They're dancers.
Yeah.
And it shows because they do some serious dancing.
Yeah, Sofia Boutella was a dancer as well. What's interesting to me, this is the one and only film I've seen her in where she doesn't play an assassin. So I think subconsciously I must have thought she was the one who was going to kill everybody. Yeah. But no, not in this case.
And so much of this was improvised. improvised. It was shot with a 5-page script. It was written, shot, and edited in 4 months in order to meet the Cannes Film Festival deadline. So they got the thing shot in 15 days and then all started on post-production. So it was just amazing. A lot of it's improvised, as I said. Even the dance scenes, only the first one was choreographed. The rest was a result of the way the dancers chose to express themselves in their own way, and the fact that so many of them were professional dancers. And as you mentioned, Sofia Boutella was also a trained dancer.
Yes.
That it worked just perfectly. But
yeah, because it really does. A lot of times I think when you have a film like that and it's made on a rush and people are improvising, it feels that way in a way that is sort of awkward. This feels very authentic because this is what they do, and they're at a party, so this is what they would have done.
Yeah, and if you are familiar with his movies, especially Irreversible, it might remind you the way Irreversible is told backwards. This one it's not told backwards, but it has some sequences that are out of time and end up tying themselves together in the end.
Yeah.
So like you see the closing credits very early, and then you'll see the opening credits at the end. So it's interesting that way. But always want to see what he is doing, and really enjoyed this one, number 5 on our horror list for the first half of the year. That is Climax, taking us up to number 4. This is a quiet movie that really, really got to both of us. It's a plainswoman facing the harshness and isolation of the untamed land in the western frontier of the late 1800s. It's called The Wind.
This land is funny, you know. The wind never stops. Plays tricks on your mind. I've seen something. I hear it too, whispering. You remember how many graves you passed on the way here?
This place is wrong.
No one's here but us.
No.
There is nothing out there!
So the 5 movies that we have on here today, 2 of them are from first-time filmmakers.
Yeah.
You know, and the other 3 are from very, very established filmmakers. So it's an interesting, I think, to me. This is the first film that Emma Tammy has directed, and wow, it's confident.
Wow, it is so confident. It's so confident in the way, especially as it goes along, the way it refuses to bow to preconceived notions or pander or anything that you might expect movies that kind of start out this way, the ways that you might expect it to go. It doesn't. You're right. She's so confident in where she's taken this movie and the statement that she's making for a first-time filmmaker, just so impressive.
Oh,
and the writer, too. I should mention the writer, which is
Teresa Sutherland.
And
then I think, you know, sort of filling out that trifecta is Caitlin Girard, her performance. So it's really, there are 5 people ever who appear on screen, 2 couples, and then a reverend who comes through at one point. It doesn't ever feel cheaply made, although in retrospect, I'm sure because it's one location and a total of 5 actors, I'm sure that they probably did make it on a very small budget, but it never feels that way.
No.
And Caitlin Girard owns this movie, and it's a really quiet, subdued performance, and it's one of those, as is very, very common in horror, the whole point is she crazy or is she right? And the way that they reveal things as the film progresses, I think, is very, very effective.
Yeah, and I like the contrast between, the title, The Wind, and they talk about, the characters talking about how the wind, it never stops. But for me, a lot of the movie, that was a metaphor for the loneliness and the isolation.
Yes.
That is what isn't stopping.
Oh, yeah.
And they cannot get away from it. And how the film's vision just sees that to the end, I thought was just very, very effective. And this is not slashing, and it's not a bunch of jump scares, but there's definitely horror to it.
Oh, my goodness, yes. Oh, yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
You know, just the way she's washing off the blood.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a chore she has to do. The pressing loneliness, and that.
Well, and without being preachy in any way about it, just the plight of the female.
Yes.
You know, and just like what exactly else is she supposed to do?
Right.
She has 0 other choices, and it's really it's an oppressive feeling for the viewer by the end of the film.
Yeah, because when events take this turn that they do, right, then what is she supposed to do about it? How is she supposed to react?
Yeah.
There's really not a lot to do.
No, yeah, it's an impressive film. It really is.
It really is. A great debut for very promising new director, Emma Tammy, and that's number 4, The Wind. Moving up to number 3 in our list, the top 5 horror from the first half of 2019. Where did it go? But it went. This is Paranoia and Superstition in 15th century Europe. Hagazusa.
I first heard about this movie because at the 24-hour horror marathon that they have at the Drexel Theater every year
here in Columbus, Ohio.
they showed this movie. They premiered this movie, and I didn't get a chance to get there to see it, but everybody who came out of that marathon, they were just raving, and I could not wait. And man, does it live up to it.
Yeah, it does. It's a slow burn. I mean, it's going to remind you of The Witch in a lot of ways, especially if you're a fan of The Witch. I know not everybody is. Well, not everybody's a fan of anything.
Right.
But we love The Witch.
Yes, we do.
And this definitely has some comparisons there. But then it also cuts its own path. It's such a mood piece that slowly gets into you. And it's another one where you just talked about The Wind. It's another one where you wonder how much of this is this really happening? Is this some sort of peyote-induced kind of nightmare or whatever they call what they were having out there?
Is it a blend of those things?
Is it a blend? And there's also that, just like there was in The Witch, this reliance on fear and superstition of women back there in that time period.
Yep.
And how the term of witchcraft and witchery can could be thrown around for no reason, and how people treat
or for a reason,
right? And how people treat outcasts or people that are perceived to be outcasts and casual cruelty, all that stuff, and it's very just slowly seeps into you, and that's what makes it by the end so effective.
Oh, and it's just sort of a visual goth poetry. It's really and in a lot of ways unlike certainly anything else we saw this year. I mean, the narrative is structured very loosely, and visually, it's just absolutely stunning in a way that feels really very poetic. I thought it was gorgeous. They're really just two main performances, both of them absolutely glorious, and really a very creepy by the end. You're asking yourself, what am I even seeing? What is happening right now?
Yeah.
Whatever it is creepy as shit.
Yeah, it's writer-director Lucas Feigfeld, is that correct? It was his Feigfeld, his graduation film.
Wow.
Graduating from what? Because I think he earned it. I mean, okay, whatever you graduated from, I think you're tops in your class, because this is, again, we just talked about a debut director, and here's another one. And it's such an assured vision. In a strange way, maybe a little ironic way, even more so in the fact that it is similar to The Witch, and he's just, I don't care.
Right.
You know, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
And if you're going to see some similarities to The Witch, okay, fine.
Right.
But not enough to make you, say, oh, no, to cry foul about it at all.
Oh, goodness, no. Oh, no. I mean, one of the things I think that he does really well is mines a very old history. I mean, this is the 1400s in the Alps, and it's fascinating because, it's such a sort of alien environment. You're like watching going, well, I don't understand, but at the same time, they're not going to stop and explain it to you. You really need to follow it along. There's a very clear internal logic to the film. It's just an alien logic to us.
Well, again, similarly to how we were just talking about The Wind, the elements are big, especially during the wintertime.
Oh, my God.
And they have to carve out an existence. That doesn't look fun.
And also, I think loneliness plays a profound part in this one as well.
Again, because in both movies, dare you call them neighbors? The closest other humans to them play a pivotal role in what goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, superstition and sort of fear of the woman and sort of how you internalize that. And then also, yes, drugs.
Yeah, drugs. Yeah, then you have to make a call about what may or may not be happening and what you're going to believe is
Right.
happening, or maybe how authentic you think the viewpoint of the main character at that point is.
And one of the things I like about this movie is that, the same with The Wind, there is a very, very strong subgenre that is basically, is the female lead crazy or is she correct? This one plays with that. Like, if maybe there's a third option, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, and still, at the very, very end, you're going to have different interpretations.
Yes.
Because you saw it first, and it took me a while to see it. In fact, I just watched it about a week or so ago, getting ready for this podcast. And so there was a couple of points where I had maybe a different interpretation than you did.
Yeah.
And not to say that anybody's wrong or
Well,
right.
I'm right.
Not to say that anybody's wrong or right. It's going to be leave some of that open, but really, really impressive again for a first and graduation film. Yeah, it's Hagazusa, our number 3 film. Let's go up to number 2, and it's the one that we were just talking about because we showed it last week. It's the peaceful town of Centerville, finding itself battling a zombie horde as the dead start rising from their graves. The dead don't die.
What the hell was it? A wild animal?
This is really awful. Maybe the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, was it wild animals?
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking zombies.
What?
You know, the undead. Ghouls.
Flesh-eating zombies.
Don't joke. It's really, really creepy.
Oh, man. This isn't going to end well.
Yeah, as you said right off the bat, I think part of maybe what makes this movie so polarizing is that a lot of people who are coming to see it because it's this great cast and it's a new zombie movie, and they're probably not that familiar with the work of Jim Jarmusch.
Right.
It's a very Jim Jarmusch film.
It is. I think some people that saw the trailer and, of course, the great cast, were expecting maybe Bill Murray in something like Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but that's not what this is.
Well, and to be fair to them, right, have you ever seen a marketing campaign like this for a Jim Jarmusch film? Never.
No. Well, as you pointed out, this is his first
national release.
And I'm sure the cast has almost everything to do with that. But it's a movie, I was going back and forth on social media with a few people about this movie, that it didn't work as well for them.
Yeah.
And it reminds me a lot of Napoleon Dynamite in the fact that we both love Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
There are other people that go, are you serious? If that works for you, and for me, Napoleon Dynamite, in the first 5 minutes, if you're not laughing, get out.
Right.
Because that's just not your thing. That's not your type of humor.
Right.
You don't see why it's funny. But if you do, like us, you think it's freaking hysterical.
Right.
The same way here. If it doesn't get you, because I think a lot of people that didn't end up loving it thought it was going to pick up as it went along.
And it doesn't. That's what I think is the biggest thing. A lot of people, enjoyed the deadpan humor for the first half hour or so, but it is, traditionally a horror film, a zombie movie, the tensions are going to sort of amp up, and the sense of urgency and the time spent, and the things are going to move more quickly. Nothing ever moves any more quickly in this movie. It's always at a very slow, very deadpan drawl. And it's so funny.
Yeah.
But again, if people who are expecting something to sort of comply to the cinematic structure you're used to, and that's just not what Jim Jarmusch does.
But if you're a longtime horror fan, you're going to see a buttload of homages and callbacks to so many films. The first obvious one is Return of the Living Dead. And,
yes.
They make a lot of reference to that.
Do.
Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the
car.
cars.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes on and on. But you're going to see more as well. And I kept looking around the screen at different times and thinking, I know I'm missing some. I know I am. So it really feels like a love letter to that type of horror movie. So even if you don't love the entire movie, you're going to love that because it is so steeped in horror history.
Well, just take the cast alone. The podcast that we did on this film was other horror films, great horror films that these people have starred in. And the fact is that we picked 5, of course, and then you could have gone on. We could have done 10. Almost everybody in this movie has starred in at least one horror film. So you just start there.
And one thing that I just read that you're going to love, apparently Jim Jarmusch originally wanted Bruce Campbell to play,
of course he did.
To play the part that Carol Kane ended up playing.
Oh, my God.
For some reason, it didn't work out with Bruce Campbell. How sweet would that have been?
That would have been
sweet. And then they
sweet.
rewrote the role for a woman. That's the character that runs around going
Chardonnay.
Yeah. because all the zombies they're not after brains, they're after whatever they were after in real life.
Right.
Which is one of the running gags that's just hilarious. And it's not just the old zombie films that are referenced. I mean, there's the scene where Adam Driver leans out the window with a machete to cut off the head of one particular zombie, and that zombie is dressed identically to Bill Murray's character in Zombieland. I mean, so it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
But you're right. You have to be a fan of this type of deadpan humor because it doesn't pick up. It doesn't go Shaun of the Dead at all.
Oh, no.
But if that sort of thing works for you as well as it works for us, then you'll know why that we pushed this so high on the list because we both thought it was just so much fun.
It was. And, we love this cast. I mean, every face in here is beloved to us. I think the two real leads, right, would be Bill Murray and Adam Driver. And Bill Murray, as we said before, he has chemistry with every single person on screen, including, as we point out, Carol Kane, who's dead in the entire film. He is just adorable, and you love him. But for me, Adam Driver was a surprise. Now, Adam Driver is a remarkable talent, but I had no idea he was so funny.
Yeah, and we haven't even mentioned the Tilda.
Oh, the Tilda.
Come on.
Oh, my God.
Another thing, as far as references go, it has multiple references to Ghoulardi. Now,
yes!
Ghoulardi is not going to mean anything to a lot of people, but here in Ohio,
huge.
Ghoulardi hosted an old type of, it was a TV show out of Cleveland that I used to watch on reruns and syndication when I was a kid. And he did these...
Like a Joe Bob Briggs.
Like a Joe Bob Briggs, yeah. And he dressed up, his name was Ernie Anderson, and he dressed up as Ghoulardi. And, of course, Ernie Anderson now has a connection to today's Hollywood and one of the best directors working today.
Yeah, he's Paul Thomas Anderson's father.
You're right. Exactly.
So he did well.
Yeah, he did well. But there's the first time I saw it in the background there in the store. The store that
Caleb Landry Jones works
in. I'm like, that's Ghoulardi back there.
And I love, too, Caleb Landry Jones wears two different Nosferatu T-shirts, which means that he has almost as many Nosferatu T-shirts as I have.
There's just a bunch of those. So it's just one or two, three of the reasons that we found this movie to be a ton of fun. The Dead Don't Die, number 2 on our list of best horror for the first half of 2019, and that can only leave room for one at the top.
What could it be?
You've probably guessed it. It's a family's serene beach vacation turning to chaos when their doppelgangers appear and begin to terrorize them in Jordan Peele's Us.
There's a family in our driveway.
It's probably the neighbors. But y'all scared of a family? Hi, can I help you?
Zora, put your shoes on.
If you want to get crazy, we can get crazy. What are you people?
It's us.
Here is another one that begs to be watched repeatedly.
Oh.
I mean, for a million reasons, but among them, just to make sure that you're catching all the Easter eggs.
So many, and some that I didn't catch the first time. In fact, I don't know if you caught this, but carved on the side of the entrance to the Hall of Mirrors, the words, "Get out."
Yes, nice.
I mean, but not just his movie. So many great horror movies are referenced.
Many.
I mean, on and on and on. Jaws, and then, of course,
The Lost Boys.
The setting there. In the very beginning, you see the VHS tapes around Chud, also the Goonies, and The Right Stuff, which is interesting because you look at all three of those movies, and they all deal with either things below the ground or above.
Right.
Just everything means something.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown himself to be an incredibly thoughtful, visionary filmmaker.
Yeah. And this one also begs many different interpretations.
Oh, yeah.
It's much less concrete than Get Out was.
Yes.
But still very, very effective. But the one thing that comes through, no matter how you interpret it, is everything is about duality.
Yes.
I mean, you constantly see 11:11. Mm-hmm. Everything has a doppelganger on the other side of it. Even the song. Think about the song. I got 5 on it. What is that song about? It's a drug song about 2 people each pitching in $5 to buy a $10 bag of weed. Everything. Mm-hmm. Everything is so carefully placed. Mm-hmm. And I love it so much. And here's one tidbit I just found out. one person, one celebrity who made a cameo in this movie that nobody realized, Nicole Richie. How did she manage that? Because she was actually in the commercial for Hands Across America that they show on the TV. Can you believe that? Oh, they show that real ad for Hands Across America, which you realize at the time, and if you weren't involved in Hands Across America, how kind of creepy that was, wasn't it? You're like, we're all going to get together and hold hands. At the time, you're like, yeah, we're going to do it. And I was out there standing in a field. We didn't quite pull it off, but then you see the commercial now. Maybe it's the context of the movie, but you see the commercial now, and you're like, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Well, and the commercial was creepy. You know, it like closes in on people's teeth and their hands, and it's like so like weirdly super creepy close-up.
Yeah, exactly. But as we talked about before, that we've talked about this movie, it's loosely based on an old Twilight Zone episode, and you know, it has those different interpretations. It could be about a lot of things. You could make the case that it's about, are we repressing the darkest parts of ourselves that we fight to keep hidden all the time, or maybe the fragile nature of our own identity, or even how bitterly this country is divided right now. I mean, all those things and more. And I think it's another indication of the brilliance of this movie and Peele as a filmmaker is that you could make an argument for all of those things.
Yeah. But no matter what the core symbolism might mean, it's an incredibly absorbing, involving, and creepy movie with all those rabbits, you know, and the whole underground, the way they move to mirror what's happening above ground. Of course, Lupita Nyong'o, the whole cast is great, but she, first of all, again, and we've said this several times this year, if you can get an Oscar winner to lead your horror movie, I'd like to thank you. Because it just really elevates our favorite genre. Right. And she's so good. She's so good in this movie.
But you're right, they are all good, too.
Yeah, they are.
Right down to the kids.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's great. And I love how the fact that Winston Duke is such a dork.
I know.
He is. You talk about wanting to see this movie several times. It's one of those, much like it reminds me of The Sixth Sense, in the fact that once you saw The Sixth Sense and you saw the twist, I think one of the reasons that movie made so much money that it did is that people went back to try to see the clues.
Right.
Same way here. There are clues to the twist. Oh,
yes, absolutely.
There definitely are. Mm-hmm. And you can't believe you missed them, you know, if you did. And I'm sure you didn't get all of them, even if you caught on a little quicker than some people did. But there are a ton of them.
Yeah, it's just one more reason to see it twice or three or four times. I mean, we want to see it again because of all of the horror movie little nods that we missed.
Yeah.
But I'd want to see it again just because it was a fun, scary movie.
And it's also smart.
Oh, so smart.
Which I love. You know, I talked about that, I think, when we wrote the written review for this. We talked about being scared stiff is fun, but for my money, I think for our money, being scared smart is even better. And that's what this movie does. It scares you smart, and I loved it and can't wait to see what Jordan Peele does next. And that is our number one horror movie for the first half of 2019. It's Us. What do you think? What did we leave out? What did we not have high enough or low enough? Or what do you think? Let us know. It's easy to keep the conversation going on Twitter. You can find us at Fright Club Pod. Always love to hear from you. Of course, on Facebook and Instagram, you can find us at Mad Wolf Columbus, and the main website where you can find all of our written reviews and our other podcast about all the new releases called The Screening Room. You can find that anytime at madwolf.com. We always appreciate you listening to the Fright Club podcast.
And wherever you are listening to this podcast, if you would take a second to subscribe, rate, and review, we would appreciate it.
Yes, very much so. So we're looking ahead to Wednesday, July 10th, next edition of Fright Club Live. We're back at the Gateway Film Center, Columbus, Ohio, to show We Are the Flesh and talk about body fluids.
That's right.
And then what's going to be the next studio Fright Club? Do we know yet?
We're kicking around some options. Why don't we take a vote?
We want to take a vote?
Yeah.
All
so dogs. I was thinking about doing basically for Natalia. Our friend Natalia, complains that dogs never survive, cats never survive. And then in Annabelle, she was most worried about the chicken.
The chicken.
So I was thinking about doing one on dogs or cats, or I suppose we could do a combination of the two.
Well, you know, we were just talking today. It was one of the first nice weekends we've had in eons here in the Midwest, and we saw so many nice dogs out.
We did.
Nice dogs everywhere, just begging to be petted. So maybe we could do dog. But let's see if we get any feedback on that.
Yeah.
If you're thinking dogs, people love dogs though, so I bet you it would win. And we love cats too. Dogs might work. All right, we'll see. Keep in touch if you can, and until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friends.